And welcome to the Annual Grants 2025 Community Grants Program presentation. My name is Michael Van Vliet. I'm the Community Team Grants Team Leader at City of Yarra, and I'm here to talk to you about the grants. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the country that I'm working from today. We acknowledge the land of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people and them as the true traditional owners and sovereigns of the land, now known as Yarra. We also acknowledge any significant contributions made by other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to life in Yarra. We pay our respects to elders from all nations and to their elders past and present and future. So today's session is about who can apply for the grant, why do we provide these grants, who is eligible, what are the current funding categories, how to apply for a grant, and some general tips for grant applicants. The key dates for the grants, they begin on the 10th of June, so they're already running, and they close on the 31st of July at midnight. Decisions are announced in November, and grants are paid in December, January next year. Projects are commenced from January 2025 and conclude by January 2026. We provide these grants to support and strengthen the community and promote community health and wellbeing. The grant program aims to address some of the social needs of the community across a range of areas, including arts and culture, the environment, community development, sport, recreation, and youth and families. Generally, grants are given to not-for-profit community-based organisations who are incorporated, but there are some exceptions. Groups can be auspiced if they're not incorporated themselves, and individuals and businesses can apply under the arts and culture category. Obviously, it's important to read the guidelines for a full list of criteria. Some of the grant categories, this year there's 5 different major categories. There's community development, which includes major projects, community strengthening and support, community celebrations and social enterprise. There's family, youth and children, which includes family and early years, youth and middle years, arts and culture, climate action, community housing, and sports and recreation. We'll go into these in further detail after we have a look at the funding figures, which include community development, 483,000, arts and culture, 519,000, family, youth and children, 132,000, sports and rec, 58,000, community housing, 50,000, and climate change and environment, 42,000. So the total amount for the annual grants this year is 1.28 million. That's out of a $2.3 million budget for grants in total. So the community development grants are designed to strengthen social and cultural diversity, encourage people from all backgrounds to participate in community life. And there are 5 major subcategories. Firstly, the major projects, which is up to $50,000. These replace the investing in community grants from a few years ago. Community support, maximum $10,000. Community strengthening, maximum is $4,000. Community celebrations, $3,000, and social enterprise, which has a maximum of $15,000. Applicants who received a community strengthening grant in 2022 or 23 don't need to apply again this year, as their 3-year grant has been extended for another year. So there are around 40 culturally and linguistic diverse community organisations that receive this multi-year grant, and as I said, they won't need to reapply. They'll be receiving a letter saying that the current arrangement will continue. The major project grants provide significant funding to not-for-profit organisations to run programs which serve the community and align with some of our funding priorities. Grants of up to $50,000 are available for that 1 year, and 11 grants were approved last year, and the average amount was $26,000. Successful applications will align with at least one of our key objectives of the Council's strategic plans. Community development grants also include the community strengthening, up to $4,000, aimed at small local community groups to seek funding to run activities. Community support grants up to $10,000, which will suit larger groups, offering services and programs to the Yarra community. Community celebrations, which is up to $3,000, to smaller events that showcase, celebrate and support Yarra's diverse communities. And social enterprise, up to $15,000 for not-for-profit organisations that establish social enterprise, and particularly ones that create employment opportunities for people facing barriers to workforce participation. The Climate Action and Environment stream seeks to support initiatives that accelerate community-led climate action at a local level. It places funding priority on funding projects that mobilise community, support the most vulnerable and build strong connections. Some of the different projects might involve reducing carbon emissions, supporting local food systems, caring for local natural environments, reducing waste and promoting conscious consumption and fostering sustainable transport through bicycles or other means. Grants of up to $55,000 are available. The Family, Youth and Children stream is designed to enhance the health and wellbeing of families, children and young people from backgrounds who work, study, live or visit Yarra and build their capacity to actively participate in community. There are two subcategories, basically broken up into the age groups: family in early years from birth to 8, and youth and middle years, which is ages 8 to 25. The maximum grant in both streams is $10,000. The sports grants aim to increase participation in local sport and recreation programs by sections of the Yarra community that currently have a low participation rate, such as the elderly or people from emerging backgrounds. There are three subcategories. So the first one is participation initiatives to help people join clubs that might pay for their sporting uniforms or their club fees. The maximum grant is $5,000. There's the sports and recreation equipment grants, which are up to $1,000, and the coach and volunteer training grant, which is up to $1,000 as well. The Arts and Culture stream supports creation and presentation of arts and cultural projects, activities and works to promote Yarra as a creative place where dynamic, diverse and vibrant arts activities can thrive. The grant is a one-year grant after testing 2 rounds last year, so there's just one opportunity to apply for the annual grant this year. The annual grant has a different URL separate from the community grant stream, and it's down there below. It's cityofyarra.smartygrants.com.au/ACG25. Maximum grant is $10,000 for individuals and $20,000 for organisations and community groups. It's also the Yarra Arts Fellowship is available, which is a $10,000 grant, which will be offered, and also you can apply from 10th of June to 31st of July, so it's open now. The community housing stream aims to promote initiatives that help sustain tenancies and build more cohesive and resilient communities. Grants up to $50,000, and there's $50,000 in the pool. Some eligible projects might include impacts of complex multiple issues on vulnerable tenants, sustained tenancies of low-income households at risk of homelessness, explore development of packages that support new community housing tenancies to access local supports, and explore partnerships that increase resilience and connectedness of community housing tenants. This is the last of the community development and arts grants. And next up, we have the small project grants. So these grants open again on the 1st of July, and they're available also for our website. And they're designed for small projects or events that arise unexpectedly during the year outside the timelines of the annual grants. They're quick response grants, so usually you'll hear back between 3 and 4 weeks about what the outcome is. and the grants close once all the funding has been allocated. This year there's $75,000 in the pool. There are basically few streams. There's the community development stream up to $1,000, arts and culture up to $2,000, and the sustainability arts grants, which is a separate stream, is also up to $1,000. The youth-led grants are another standalone grant aimed at delivering projects delivered by young people in the City of Yarra. Grants are up to $3,000 are available. To be eligible, you must be aged between 16 and 25 years, work, study or live in the City of Yarra, have a strong connection, and applicants need to be auspiced either by a not-for-profit organisation or a school, and they can apply individually or as part of a group. And they will reopen on the 1st of August. There's $25,000 available in this pool. Some other Yarra Arts grants include the Room to Create Responsive grants, which open on 1st of July. These grants offer quick responses to help creative spaces and live music venues stay in the City of Yarra. So applicants can apply for one grant per financial year. Funding is capped at $2,000 for a standalone grant or $5,000 for a matching grant. There's $25,000 available in this pool as well. And grants or applicants that haven't received a grant in the past are prioritised. So all our grants are online from the website City of Yarra, smartygrants.com.au. Application forms are now available for all the applications, and you can read the guidelines and application forms online as well. It's also good when reading the application form or when you're having a look at the guidelines, you can see the relevant grant officer to speak to about your project. So it's always good to give somebody a call about what you're planning to do and whether that is something that Yarra is likely to fund, so you don't waste your time applying for something that's not likely to be funded, and also to give you some ideas about how you can shape your application to be successful. This is what the website application form looks like. There are around 15 pages to complete. You can preview and navigate the form on the menu to the right of the screen. Application closes as soon as the clock switches over to 12 AM, so don't leave it to the last minute. Be prepared. Community organisations also need to provide a financial statement, so have that at the ready. Keep your budget realistic. The assessors look closely at the budget, so don't overquote for things or underquote. Try and make it as reasonable and as real as possible. Try to avoid jargon, so plain English is best. The assessors have to read many applications, so it's good if they can get the simplest language as possible. Address the funding criteria and priorities. So in the application form, be sure to answer those questions around how are you addressing those. And submit early, don't leave it to the last minute. Often people leave it to the last minute and can't complete their application and miss out altogether. A new feature of the application form is the outcomes engine, and this is where you let us know about the changes you expect to occur and the beneficiaries for your project. We've made a list of outcomes that relate to our priorities, which are explained in the grant guidelines, and this will make it easier for you to evaluate the success of your project. It will also help council gauge the impact of the grants by aggregating all the data. I guess it's important to realise, this is just in the beta stage, so don't worry too much about it. It may help you with your evaluation of the program, but it's not something we'll judge the grant outcome on, so don't be too concerned. This is what the outcome engine page looks like. You've got 3 columns basically with listing our outcomes, your outcomes, and any notes you might want to add. So the budget is divided up into 3 sections. The cash budget, which is all your income, your in-kind contributions, which might be your donated materials or goods or venues, and then the volunteer costs. Your total outcome or income should match your total expenditure. So the amount of cash you're spending should match up with the amount that you're generating. And that money you generate includes the grant. So the budget form will look like this. On the left-hand side, we have the income and whether the income status is around whether it's confirmed or not confirmed. So you have the grant and any other income, which might be ticket sales or donations. And then the expenditure, what you're spending the funding on. It might be catering or venue hire or so forth. So it automatically adds up. And on the left-hand side, you've got the total cash balance of the income. On the right-hand side, you've got the expenditure, and those two should add up. If they don't add up, you need to change either your income or your expenditure so it makes them do. This is the form, what it looks like for the in-kind contributions. Are pretty basic, just list what was in kind and how much it cost, or the estimated costs. And then with all the grants, we have come to assess them. So the grants are decided against the assessment criteria, and basically this measures whether they're supported or not. So the main criteria is the capacity of the applicants to deliver on the projects, that the project has a clearly defined aim, that there's clearly identified target groups for the project, it has an alignment with the stream funding priorities, there's evidence of community need, that the intended outcomes and clear evaluation methods are demonstrated, there's community participation and consultation where appropriate, and obviously a complete and realistic budget, as I discussed before. All not-for-profit organisations who apply for a grant are required to provide their latest financial statement with their application. This could be a copy of the statement they provide to Consumer Affairs each year, and is required to ensure the applicant organisations are financially viable and able to sustain the projects they've applied for. Also, public liability insurance. We need all applicants who are successful to provide their public liability insurance. You're not required to include evidence of the insurance with your application. However, once you've been chosen as a successful candidate, you need to reply with your funding agreement. Public insurance doesn't need to be in your name, but it can be in the venue's name where you're working for, or in the gallery or exhibition space or theatre where the event's taking place. The public liability insurance needs to be up to the value of $20 million, which has increased from $10 million a few years ago. So just to give some grant writing tips, obviously I mentioned before to be concise, don't overdo it. Don't assume that the grant assessor knows your group. We have different grant assessors every year, and you may have been receiving a grant for many years, but the grant assessor might not know your group, so it's good to give that basic information about what your group does and how it does it. Have a look at what projects have received grant previously. You can see that on our website. It'll give you an idea about some of the grants that have been successful and some of the projects that are likely to get up. The big W's, this is my favourite slide. So these are the key questions to answer in your application, any grant application. If you cover these off, you should be well on the way to having a good grant application. So you need to answer these questions, the big W's. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it? What's your big idea? How do you achieve your aims? How do you achieve these ideas? How do you put them in place? When do you do it? And probably the most important question of all, why should Yarra Grants fund you? So what are the important things that make your application stand out from all the rest, and make the assessors think, oh, I've got to fund this one because it's such a good project. So then what happens? Well, after the grants are assessed and the assessment period takes several months because there's a lot of applications to look at. Probably we receive around 300 applications. In November, we'll be sending out an email with the outcomes of your application. And if you are successful, a funding agreement will be attached to your application on Smarty Grants. You also need to submit that funding agreement and provide a copy of your public liability insurance if you hadn't provided before, and a bank statement if you haven't received a grant before. You're showing your account name, BSB, and account number. Because all the grants are paid by EFT, and they'll be paid by the end of January once you've returned your funding agreement, and projects to commence in January or sometime in 2025. If you miss out on a grant, it's always good to give us a call. We provide specific feedback around each and every grant about why they missed out. Often it's just because there wasn't enough funding to go around for all the good grants, but sometimes there might be a specific reason about, you've left something out, or the assessors weren't convinced that you could complete the project, or some errors in the budget or something like that. So it's also always good to have that feedback, so when you apply for a grant again, you won't make the same mistakes, and you'll be able to use that feedback to maybe have successful grants in the future. See who else has been successful. So there'll be a list of all the grants that have been successful, and see who your competition was and who got the grants. It's important, obviously, to maintain feedback and communication relationships with the grants team, so they know who you are, so they'll be able to endorse your applications in future. And also to look at other funding avenues, so they might be able to give you ideas about where your grant might fit in perhaps other grant programs run by state government or federal government or some local funding institutions. If you do get the grant, you need to manage it. So set up an evaluation strategy to show how your grant has achieved the effects you've set out to achieve and made those changes. Keep track of how you're spending the money. So set up a financial report in Excel or a spreadsheet somewhere, so you can show how you've spent the grant at the end of the day when it comes to report the grant. And also publicly acknowledge the grant. So give us a call or send us an email. We can send you out the Yarra logos, and you can add them to any pamphlets or promotional material you might have, posters, or put them on your website to show that Yarra has been supporting your grant and your project. So each recipient is required to submit an acquittal report within 2 months of the completion of the project. The acquittal report includes the financial report on how the money was spent, and also how the project outcomes were achieved. The acquittals attached to each and every application, and if you have an overdue acquittal, you're not eligible for funding until that acquittal has been submitted. So that's the end of the presentation. Here are my details: Michael Van Vliet, 9206-5146, and our email, yarragrants@yarracity.vic.gov.au. Catherine Tranter recently started as the administration assistant, and she'll be able to help you as well with any grant questions you might have. There's more information on our website about us grants, and thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Have a good day. Bye.